What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? And today we're going to be discussing about Dishonored 2. I was not anticipating of doing this title because I did my very first content on Dishonored 1 as of yesterday, but I was planning on making a video on Dishonored 2 as we are seeing right now. So, too much further ado, let's dive right into this game. This game is way better than the first one. I mean, other than the first one really set the ground bar of it being an action-adventure first-person title. It still represents a immersive sim, much like Prey 2017. But what Dishonored is, it's more of a robust action-adventure game to where you can utilize stealth to its utmost advantage, and to where what these games really pertain in what kind of a combat or stealth playstyle that you can do in these games. That's where the Dishonored series is so different from Prey. So I just thought I'd put that in there real quick. Now, what I really think about Dishonored 2 as a whole, you get to play as two protagonists, but not just one anymore from that of Dishonored 1. You get to play as Emily Kaldwin, which is the daughter to the Empress, which was murdered in the first one, and Corvo Attano is basically Emily Kaldwin's father. And so you get to play as Corvo Attano and Emily Kaldwin in Dishonored 2. And that's what makes Dishonored 2 very much different from the first one, because like I said, you play as two protagonists. And with Emily, she doesn't have the same exact powers from what her father does, Corvo Attano has. Other than the fact that what Emily really utilizes other than like going with the stealth or going with the combat, especially when the stealth is involved with Emily. Yes, it does play similar to that of what Corvo's stealth mechanic is by using the blink or using shadow kill. Is the fact that with Emily, though, she has an ability called Far Reach, which is going to be a mixture of a climbing of sorts but it's using a little bit of that blink aspect to that as well. And once you get your Far Reach fully upgraded with Emily, you are able to grab certain things within the world or grab your enemies within the world and use them as an advantage as in a trap, or utilize it by picking up items within the world of Dishonored 2. And that's where this ability with Emily Kaldwin specifically makes it more different from that of what Corvo Attano's ability is, which is called Blink. I know I intend to repeat myself, so my apologies on that. But however, I think when it comes to Dishonored 2, this one takes place in Karnaca. It's a very different and vibrant and robust area from that of what Dunwall did in the very first Dishonored. And I think where Dishonored 1, it utilizes a lot of different types of playthroughs in the first one. But in Dishonored 2, there's more playthroughs involved because, when you play as Corvo Attano in your first playthrough, and then when you play as Emily Kaldwin in your second playthrough, you are actually able to utilize Emily Kaldwin's powers along with Corvo Attano's powers from Corvo's first playthrough, and reverse that by like using Corvo Attano's powers and Emily Kaldwin's powers with Emily. And it's a different type of... I actually was able to do that years ago when I played this game for the very first time, or played it for the second time around. It really utilized a different type of playthrough to where I was not really expecting. It was interesting, it was intricate, it was robust in its own unique gameplay fluidity, and that's where I believe that Dishonored 2 did a lot of things better from the first one. I really think when it comes to the first one, especially when there are sequels involved, the first one is always going to be that origin of a story, but when there's a sequel involved, there's always going to be something maybe different. There are going to be some similarities in terms of the gameplay style, whether if you're playing as Emily or as Corvo Attano. But however, I think that's where Dishonored 2 really falls under of that differentiality between Emily Kaldwin and Corvo Attano, and they have their own unique types of powers, and that's where I really love the fact that you play as two protagonists in Dishonored 2. And that's where I think, to me, in my personal opinion, to where Dishonored 2 plays so much better than from the first one. And, it's funny that, that I'm mentioning that though too is because I played the first one yesterday for a little while until I finally decided to make content on it, and it really dawned on me to the fact that, you know, this game really definitely holds up, even Dishonored 2. And it's amazing that, you know, we've got another Dishonored game called Death of the Outsider, and, you know, I don't think I never really touched base on that game very much, but it was a superior sequel to, I don't want to say it's a superior sequel, but it is a sequel to Dishonored 2. But overall, I still think that Dishonored 1 and Dishonored 2 were much better titles than from that one, in my personal opinion. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people really enjoyed Death of the Outsider. I did, however, enjoy it, but, you know, it was just something that I wasn't really quite understanding of what I wanted that game to be, and I guess I put my expectations way too high for that one. And like I said, I did like it, however, it was just that I felt like the Dishonored 2 and Dishonored 1 are far more superior to that of Death of the Outsider. So I just want to put that out there. I know it might be a little bit of a hot take, but that's just my own personal type of opinion, of course, or preference. Now, I think when it comes to Dishonored 2, this game really sets the standard of what these games really want to do. I think when it comes to playing your own way, you know, much like Prey 2017, that's what these games are. You get to play your own way. You can play through stealthily, you can play through combat focused, and it's the fact that of what you really can do with different types of powers and utilize those powers to the utmost of higher experience, as it were. You know, being able to broaden that experience with those types of powers with Emily or with Corvo, and then having those combined from having Corvo's abilities combined to Emily's, like I said, the experience is that much greater. And what I'm trying to say is that I believe in the place of Karnak in Dishonored 2, oh man, it's absolutely beautiful in its own unique way. You know, and of course, you know, there is still the morality system. You still have the high chaos and low chaos. But, you know, it's been such a long time that I've played this game, and it's the reason why I decided to make content on Dishonored 2 this evening, is because I wanted to be able to find a good, proper balance and efficiency to where how I'm really going to discuss Dishonored 2 as a whole, and why I think Dishonored 2 is a better sequel to Dishonored 1, other than Dishonored 1 being an amazing game of all time. I really think, besides Prey 2017, I do enjoy Dishonored 1 and Dishonored 2, because you have these types of characters, and with these characters, other than Corvo and Emily, and having different types of abilities really just sets the bar of, like I said, playing your own way. And when you play your own way and how you want to utilize your powers and being able to have it substantiate to what you really want to do with those powers, it's absolutely amazing what you can do. I mean, there's so much experimental experiences involved, and I think that's where Dishonored 1 and Dishonored 2 really do an amazing job of utilizing those types of abilities. Now, one ability in particular I would really like to discuss here, though, too, especially if you're playing as Emily Caldwin, there's a thing called Shadow Stalker, or something like that. And basically, she becomes like a misformed type of creature, and you can utilize that in stealth mode. You can't utilize it in combat mode, because otherwise you will eventually get killed, and that's not a good way of doing it. So it's much more of a stealth-focused type of ability, and it's pretty badass. And as you can see here, I didn't really get into that ability just yet in this video, because I want to touch more base on not just about the shadow kill for Emily, but it was the fact that I was trying to utilize different types of powers other than like using dark vision or dark eye, I call it, and that it really helps to maintain a proper focus of the footprint of the enemies that are going to be able to go across certain types of walkways, and being able to know where they are going to be and where their progression path is going to be as well. That really helps. But what really helps in Dishonored 2 other than Dishonored 1 is the fact that, you know, you can use your crossbow or your gun, and, you know, especially when you go into high combat, I do highly recommend going into reflexes, which is going to be power of the mind ability within the game. And I think that's where, you know, you could be able to deflect arrows, you could be able to deflect bullets from enemies that shoot from their gun, and basically you weren't able to do that in the first one, and that's where the gameplay really vamps up from the first one, because with the first one, you, like I said, you weren't able to do that. I mean, they didn't have those types of abilities like they have in Dishonored 2, and that's where I believe in Dishonored 2, they did a lot of gameplay, different mechanics on that, and making the gameplay more fluid and robust than from what Dishonored 1 did. And I think it's absolutely amazing. I love that. And that's where, to me, I feel like the Dishonored 2, it has a New Game Plus mode, by the way, or like a Missions Plus mode. Same thing. Pardon me. And so you are able to like replay any types of missions all over again, whether if you're playing as Corvo or whether if you're playing as Emily. And as far as I know, you still have your powers. And I think that's a really good idea to maintain a proper balance of being able to go through specific types of missions again if you'd like, or to do so. And I think that's where it's a good thing to where when we have solo games like this or single player games, that, you know, there's always a good idea to have it like some sort of New Game Plus mode, because we want to have that higher replayability. I've mentioned that in my Hogwarts Legacy video not too long ago, earlier this year, and so it's like I feel like that, you know, like I said, we do need the New Game Plus mode in most of our single player games, because, like I said, it has to do with what replayability that we want in our single player games. So I thought I'd put that a little bit of snippet information in there as well. Now, what I really love about Dishonored 2, other than it being a really good proper sequel to the first one, because initially, I don't think a lot of people knew this, but Dishonored 1 was not supposed to have the sequel. But apparently, since Dishonored 1 sold really, really well, even though that it was an underwhelming gem when it first initially came out, it got a high critical praise to it. And that when that happened, they said, oh, well, okay, well, what are we going to do with the sequel? So that's where Dishonored 2 came into play, and they decided to develop Dishonored 2 and make it a full-time sequel, or a full-fledged sequel to the first one. And to me personally, I really think that they did an amazing job with this one. Shadow Walk, that's what I was talking about with Emily Caldwell's ability. So my apologies on that. I had to see that right on screen here. But, you know, like I said, you know, sequels are not always going to be the best, but I believe Dishonored 2 just did a really good job of being a good, proper sequel to the very first one. And I think with the first one, it was absolutely amazing. I love the first one. I think it's one of the best immersive combat sim or stealth sim games out there, other than from Prey 2017. And so it just has to do with the way how this game really looks and how it plays. And, you know, how, like I said, you know, they still have that high chaos and low chaos morality system. And, you know, that's one thing I would really like to see in future games from Arcane, or any other game for that matter, that have like some sort of type of morality system to where you can utilize to have some types of choices and the consequences of those choices that you make within a game like that. You know, the Metro series has done that though too as well, and I think the Metro series did an amazing job with that as well too, because that's where it really sets the ground, or to the standard of why I think certain games out there, much like the Dishonored, or much like Prey 2017, or even the Metro series, because, you know, initially we don't really get enough games that have a morality system to where there's like a high chaos or low chaos. And, you know, like I previously mentioned, you know, Metro Exodus and Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light do have that high chaos and low chaos type of thing, but it feels differently in those games. But when it comes to Dishonored 1 and Dishonored 2, or even Death from the Outsider, there's always going to be a choice and consequence, and that's where the Metro series kind of had that though too, because in the Metro series, if you don't kill anybody, you would get you would get the best ending possible. But if you kill everybody, you're not going to get the best ending, and it's going to be the bad ending. So basically, that's basically where the Dishonored games are based upon, with the high morality or the high chaos and the low chaos, and it really works really, really well. But another thing I would really like to add here, though, too, is I really think that Dishonored 2, like I said, it's definitely a lot better from the first one. I couldn't wait to get my hands on this game when it first initially came out. And once I finished it, I'm just like, wow, I really want to play this again. I actually ended up playing it again, and it's still a great game. This game definitely still holds up to the highest standard of gaming in general when it comes to single-player games, and I think this is one of the best single-player game franchises I've ever played, amongst from the original Thief games. Now, there is one thing I would really like to add here real quick as well. These games are basically a modernized Thief, much like the original Thief games back in the day of 1998, 2002, and 2004 with Thief Deadly Shadows. But overall, I would greatly appreciate it. Any comments or questions you might have, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. I'd be more than happy to reply back if and whenever possible. This is Jake from Citizens JV. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.